Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 98th episode of Let's Talk About Market. So, if you see the Nifty index today, it broadly gapped up higher and then stayed, positive throughout the day in a very narrow range. Basically, we did not see much volatility, but yes, there were stock-specific actions that were visible. Um, if we talk about the entire setup, we have come to an important point in the short term because few days back we had discussed about sentiment indicators being in oversold zone. From there, many of the indicators have gone out of the oversold zone and they are now actually coming to an overbought zone. So, what do we expect from here on is something that we'll discuss. And yeah, I think that will be the broader discussion point. So let me quickly share my screen. And if someone can please confirm if you all are able to see my screen properly. If someone can please confirm if you all are able to hear me properly and see my screen, so that we can get started. Okay, thanks for the confirmation. So, see, in the Nifty index, we had mentioned that, somewhere over here is the support zone because that's where the Nifty index has broken out of multiple tops which it had formed with a gap. And, that was supposed to be an important support zone. And from there on the hourly chart, it took support at the 40-hour average and it turned around. Now, some important so also before that I'll just tell you the rationale why the short term outlook at least started to look a bit bullish, and in fact at some point it looked like that this decline will end. So many of that overbought zone, I mean, many of the short term sentiment indicators kind of turned oversold around this zone. So this, if you see it on the daily chart, would be somewhere around here, right? 23rd Jan or so. And from there, the budget day was out of the blue. But we did discuss about that because broadly the Nifty index was kind of consolidating around the 40-hour, and there was this flag pattern that the Nifty index had formed. So there was this risk of a correction that was there in the near term. But so what had happened basically, let me just take out the extreme short term setup. So this was the point. In fact, sorry, this was almost the point where the Nifty index had turned oversold and so on. It was around this low. And after that, we saw a brief consolidation in which, again, the swing, which is actually a very fast indicator, turned from, oversold to overbought within 2-3 days. And from there, we got a gap. Then we saw a downtick. But now, if you see, you know, three out of these two indicators have come towards the overbought zone. Wait, let me just mark it. So this has come into overbought zone. This has come into overbought zone. Today we need to see the data of call minus put, whether it also comes to the red zone or so. But this is where, at least in the near term, maybe we are in for some correction or consolidation. Now, of course, we don't have any confirmation yet, and I think this is what would be interesting to discuss now because many people have this question: what to do now, right? When indicators are in overbought and price action is still not showing any signs of reversal. So in such cases, what do? We will discuss that in a while. But apart from that, there was another indicator, that is percentage of stocks with RMI buy, which is very helpful for predicting short-term tops and bottoms. So over here as well, you can see that it had turned to this oversold zone, and from there we got one more downside. But broadly, this ended up being a positive divergence, and the Nifty index has bounced back or almost had a positive momentum after that. One was, of course, due to the trade deal that happened, and now we are sort of seeing some broad-based up move as well. But this also, you can see, is coming towards 80 or so. So broadly, what I would say is that somewhere in the near term we are kind of approaching a zone from which there can be some correction or consolidation. Now, to judge that, how do we do? So basically, for this entire decline that we saw, the pullback of that 50% is done. 61.8 is somewhere around 20,000 or so. Okay, so 26,000 basically will act as a very strong resistance in the near term. And coupled with that, if you see, many other indicators are turning to overbought zone. So maybe, we may end up having one more positive day, or, broadly positive breadth day, I would say. But after that, things will start to look uh, a little bit hazy in the near term, because please remember that Nifty has not been able to break past this resistance zone so far, right? So until that resistance zone is not broken and we come back towards the overbought zone, then the risk will start emerging, whether can we decline from here. Now, whether this decline would be smaller, bigger, I mean, these are all things that we can figure out later. But what it means in the short term is that you need to trail your stop losses well. Okay. Now, like I told you, these are sometimes very tricky situations where you end up seeing swing reading and all those things in overbought zone, and you start wondering, what do I do next, right? So the answer to this, and I think this is something that we have discussed earlier as well, that indicators give you an early warning that a turnaround can happen, right? But it is the price action which is the most important thing which you need to observe. So in this case, if you see the hourly chart of the Nifty index, okay, just give me a minute. I'll just yeah. So so you will see that over here the Nifty index has seen a pullback towards the averages, and now it is trying to turn around, right? Now, what it means is that the hourly averages will act as very important support levels in the near term. So, as long as the Nifty index is above the 40R, it is all okay, right? But the moment 40R breaks on the downside, that's where risk of a short term correction can start emerging. So, the question is that karna kya hai? The karna kya hai part will be that if you have been long in the near term, then 40R exponential average should be your reversal level, and if that breaks on the upside, then at least the long positions which are there, which you have been trailing, that should be taken out. And maybe, I mean, you can tighten your reversal level is what I would say. That is because then the risk will start emerging of a correction. Now please understand that if this is an up move, right? So a correction of this has happened, but has the correction really happened, or is this just a pullback and it can happen further? I mean, these are the things that we are trying to answer, right? And imagine that if this bigger spike was not there, okay, if this bigger spike was not there, and if I have to only see the line chart, then what it would mean is that this is technically the highest point that we are coming to, right? And this point, as we see, okay, and now I'm again telling you, forget about this spike, because as I told earlier as well, over here barely 5 minutes also Nifty did not trade, so forget about that zone. But if we see over here as well, broadly it looks like 61.8% is taken out on the upside. But I would still be a little more careful over here, because the risk that I see in the near term is that can this do something of this sort of correction, and this correction can get ugly if the 61.8% retracement of this entire move is gone, right? So over here as well, the thing was that when the correction was happening, we did not know that the up move can happen this much, right? But all we were getting to know through the sentiment indicators were that over here we are getting towards an oversold zone, and at some point a pullback will be due. Now, whether this pullback also, we did not know if it is going to break above the averages or it will just sustain over here and fall, right? That we have figured out only now. So again, I would just say that the best of the bounce that had to happen has possibly happened. Now we have to be a little more on the careful side, and especially for the ones who want to build their position. I think they need to wait out a bit, until we end up getting some signal, in the oversold zone or so, by the swing or the average swing indicator. But the ones which who are already long, might just want to trail it and see how far the Nifty index can rise higher. Okay. One of the things that is making me a little bit skeptical over here at this point is the if you see the 26,000 call, it has a huge open interest. So of course 28,000, 25,800 put also has a significant open interest, but 26,000 has a huge open interest. So that's where, and that is somewhere around the upper Bollinger Band and the 61.8% retracement of this fall, right? So somewhere, I feel that over here maybe the Nifty index can spend some time. I think a lot more, how can we say, a lot more confirmation will come in the Nifty index once it breaks out from this range, right? Else, I remember being bullish over here and thinking, now it will go up, but it again consolidated, again came back. Here I thought that it will rise higher, but it again fell. Now I don't want to be, fooled third time. So see, right now the whole thought process was that this was somewhere an important support zone. From here, a bounce is likely. So that has come by. Okay. Now, and as I was telling you all earlier as well, when we were middle over here, where we were in the middle of the range, that somewhere around this zone is where an important support is. Somewhere around 26,300 is an important resistance. So if things are over here, maybe it might, you can be a contra, you can bet contra, and you can at least hope for a bounce. And while the bounce is unfolding, you can figure out along the way, as to if a new move is developing or no. But now that best of the bounce is possibly complete, now to be lot more confident, I would want this zone to be broken on the upside, and at that point of time I would like to see what are the prevailing data points that are telling us. Okay. But at this point of time, as I told you, if I am long, maybe I would just want to trail it based on the early averages and see how far it takes me. But then incremental bullish positions will happen only about 26,300. That is because, one, it is an all-time high, and the sentiments which are bearish, I think that will start getting significantly, there will be significant improvement in sentiment, I think about 2600. Also do not forget that FIIs in the past 2-3 days, they have again started to form some sort of bearish position, and in fact they are not covering that much. So in that sense, today's data will be important to watch. And notice that earlier the range of FIs was completely different. It was basically this kind of range. Now it's sort of become as this range on the up and down side, right? So somewhere around this 1,000 mark, if the FIs cover their position, then you would think then that okay, there is still some room left. But they have done this in the past, that they cover a bit and then they again start shorting, and when they start shorting, that leads to some sort of panic in the near term, or the correction in the near term. So this is what broadly I would tend to think. Now many of you all will wonder that I was sounding bullish in the near term, now why I'm sounding bearish. So this is what it is, like you have to be relied on the data points, and in the short term, the trade was that, trying to trade from overbought to oversold. I mean, from oversold to overbought, and that thing has already happened. Now, if I want to be incrementally bullish, I mean, at this point, I would hesitate a bit. I would simply want, some sort of correction consolidation over here for us to think that, okay, now it is ready for the next leg of up move. So that is how I'm thinking about it. And I think one sector where I'm increasingly getting worried is actually IT. The reason why I say that is firstly because it has broken this trend line support. In fact, today I was checking Infosys. I mean, it has broken this trend line support as well in Infy. If you see this trend line that has been drawn, so not a good sign, not a good sign. And this is happening when at the time when Nifty is around its upper end of the range. So can we get some negative surprise? I don't know. Will can it get impacted badly? The answer is possibly yes, because the setup is suggesting so. What has happened is that just like in the Nifty index, you can see that over here it was declining. There were few tops that were formed over here. After this broke out, what happened? There was a pullback, and now again it is attempting to go up, right? Similarly, in IT, what has happened is that this was an important support zone, right? This was an important support zone, and this entire support zone is broken down with a gap, which is not a good sign. Okay, so at the max, what can happen is that there can be some pullback towards the averages, or up till this zone. Then again, there is a risk of selling pressure further happening. And the thing is that after that news, there were 2 other days of decline. Is telling you that maybe this could be market is taking this kind of seriously, so need to be careful of that. And other than that, I was seeing some other IT related charts. I think Cognizant was the one, which is basically there in Nasdaq. But over here also you can see that it is trading in a big range, where this range has not broken on the upside, and rather it is now risking to break on the downside with a sell crossover. Not a good sign. Apart from that, if we see Accenture, right, which is again into this same space, again not a good chart. Up, decline, consolidation, again starting to decline. So IT is truly where it looks a bit worrisome. Apart from that, I have already told about auto. I mean, a bit skeptical on that. So need to see how that unfolds. In fact, PSU was a bit of a surprise for me. I think SBI, uh, guess it has beaten the street with big margin. I mean, the expectation by big margin, which has led to like a very strong move. So again, over here, the thing is that the trend has become, I mean, has started to move on the upside, and we saw a brief consolidation or a correction. And from there, the thing that we need to guess is that is it starting a next leg of up move? So at this point of time, given that the swing reading is kind of telling me that we are approaching this overbought zone in the near term, so at least for next week, or I mean this coming week or so, I would not be very aggressive in thinking that there can be a big move as such. But yes, I mean, if 26,000 breaks on the upside, that is where the call area, I mean call shorting area is, then maybe the window can open up for a further up move. But something that we need to keep in mind, and see what happens is that once we are on the long side, so imagine that after the budget day, you all were long. It is also important to take out profits as well, because see, while we are doing all this discussion, this is more from a short term perspective that we talk about, right? And we look out all the data points and think that what are the data points telling us and how do we trade. And the whole exercise of doing this was that many people think, अरे ये सब data nahi chalta hai, and all those things, right? but we have been doing this live almost for 98 sessions now, and you have seen how things have worked out, right? So that is the whole idea. And the idea is also that if you try to catch the short term moves, you have to be nimble footed and try to turn around quickly as well. And more importantly, take the profits out, right? I mean, it should not happen कि सब कुछ paper पे है and then the profit get wiped out. So that's the whole idea, that if now you were bullish, swing reading and everything, I mean, out of the four indicators, that is call minus put, in fact, I would say five indicators: call minus put, percentage of stock with RMI buy, daily swing, average swing, and OIPCR. Okay, these five things are important to gauge short term trends. Okay, now out of the five, three have nearly come to the overbought zone. For call minus put, we will be awaiting the data by the day end. So if it's like 4 out of 5, then you need to be careful. At least you can easily expect a consolidation for a week or so, and then maybe we take it from there. So that is how we think about it. Now the reason why I had discussed this very much in detail today, because people often have this question कि ये overbought में हो गया है तो मैं क्या करूं, should I short it? The answer is no, because end of the day, price action is everything. What is price action telling you currently? That overall the short term trend is bullish. From a medium term perspective, we are kind of in a sideways trend, but in short term the trend is bullish. Why? Because prices are trading above the averages, and the daily RMI is also in a bullish mode, right? So that is why broadly the short term setup is bullish. Now, when do the short term bullishness end? It might probably happen if the prices go below the 40-year, because it has been respecting that so far, right? So now, what is the indicator telling us? That probably in the near term we are coming to a point where some sort of correction or consolidation can happen. The validation of that will happen below the 40-year. So that is the whole point, right? Indicators are there to tell you how to position. Okay, and price action is where you would want to execute it. That boss, indicators were already warning, now price action has done this, so let me take out the position meaningfully. And after that, you need to wait for the setup to form. Okay, whether you want to short it at that point. So of course, look at the data points and everything at that point of time and try to decide. But I think this is what broadly I wanted to emphasize more on today. A lot of people have uh, the problem of execution and so on. So this is where I thought that let me try to address this question. uh, because many people may think, I mean, many people have this wrong conception that 80-90 पे आया तो sell करो, 20-10 पे आया तो buy करो. So it is not that way. You need to keep trend in mind, and then you need to trail the reversal levels as well. So I hope you sort of understood a bit of a concept of how do you trail with swing and so on. Of course, I mean, this can be the point of discussion as and when it is relevant. I think today was a very perfect time to discuss that, and that's why I took a lot of time to kind of address this thing. Okay, now let me take some questions. Are Sango, in volatile market, position sizing is the factor trader can control? What are the best strategies of deploying capital, and how can these be combined with chart analysis and sentiment indicator? So see, I have tried to answer that question in a way. How aggressive you are, how is it, I mean, these are all things you have to reflect on. uh, I can broadly tell you how I think about it, but again, different people may have different risk appetite. So the important point is to understand how things work, so that you can position it yourself. So rather than thinking that Jay ऐसे करता है मुझे भी ऐसा करना चाहिए, no, I mean, I may also not have an ideal this thing way. Maybe I might be too conservative and so on. So that's where trying to understand how to play swing, average swing, will help you to position yourself accordingly, because at least you would then know the risk. And then you need to take um, you need to take actions accordingly, so that you're well prepared, and you are prepared for the market volatility, and also prepared for the wild swings that it can show. So that's how I would put it. But the broad answer is that, see, if you ask किसी को भी ना कि ये ऐसे तो कैसे करना चाहिए, there is no right or wrong answer in market, right? I mean, it's all dependent on situation and how things work. So that's why trying to understand fundamentally how some indicators work will help you to set your frameworks accordingly. I don't want to sound diplomatic, but that is how it is. I mean, if I tell you something, this is how you need to do, maybe 2 months, 3 months later, there will be a different situation altogether. And then you will say that, Arey, Jay ne to aise bola tha ki, you should do like this. But that time, situation, data, everything might be totally different, right? So that's where you need to act accordingly. And that is why, the attempt is to make you all understand how these indicators work, so that you can use it to your max benefit. B bulls, bond yields, I don't know. I mean, I don't think these are all things that we have it on strike or we want to talk about it. So I am just trying to be more, how do we say, talk more relevant things based on the data points that we have, and not that. Uh, so yeah, I think, see, what we are trying, please understand what we are trying to do through this let's talk about market session is that we are trying to navigate the short term moves based on the data. Okay, that is what we are trying to do, and I think that is what I have been trying to communicate as well. uh, I mean, you know uh, uh, considering it as a long term move and so on might be, might disappoint, because in the short term the data can change, and that can lead to me also changing, the way I'm thinking about the market. Maybe 2 3 days back, you thought, you saw me sounding bullish, but now the data points have changed, and that's where the thought process needs to change. uh, and that is what trading is all about, right? So yeah, I think it's 5:28, and I've tried to address the questions that I could see in the chat box. So let's end the session for today, and let's catch up tomorrow and see what market have for us. Okay. So let's catch up at 5 p.m. in the evening tomorrow. Thank you.